Well, it looks like the New York Mets have finally gotten a general manager, and that is going to be former Angels GM Billy Eppler. In this video, I'm going to talk about Billy Eppler, my reaction to him being the next general manager, what it means for the New York Mets this year, and what it means for the New York Mets going forward, because Billy Eppler does have a pretty interesting connection that could help the Mets' long-term success. If you enjoyed this video reacting to a news story for the New York Mets and talking about the front office and the hires that they make sure to leave a like. Comment down below, what are your thoughts on Billy Eppler as the next New York Mets general manager? I mean, was it worth it? Was all this suffering of going through name after name, researching about them, and then they get denied access, or they decline the job? Does Billy Eppler make it all better after losing out to all these big candidates? If you're new here, you want to help the channel grow, you always can subscribe. We really would appreciate it. If you're already subscribed, tell a friend, tell anybody, tell a stranger, tell your coworker, because anything to help grow the channel, it's just a nice thing to do. Let's talk about Billy Eppler. This week was not the first time we heard his name. We heard him mentioned quite a while back, and even then I was not too excited. And the reason is the organization that Eppler is coming from. Now, when it came to the Mets getting a candidate, I think that just as a rule of thumb, you would want to get a guy from an organization that has been really successful, has been really innovative and trend-setting. You look at organizations like Tampa Bay, like Milwaukee, like Boston, Los Angeles. Those are the premier front offices. Those are the big-time teams that are successful every single year and do it in a multitude of ways. The Angels, on the other hand, have not been very successful, and I think that Billy Eppler has to be slightly held accountable for that. And the Angels did hold him accountable because he was fired at the end of the 2020 season after another disappointing year for the Los Angeles Angels. And as a general rule of thumb, you get fired for a reason. You get fired because you did not do a good job. So why would I bring in a guy who has not done a good job as a general manager to be my next general manager? Could it be that there's absolutely nobody left on this planet that has any front office experience for the Mets to hire? I wasn't crazy about Cromie either. He's been out of the league for a few years. He's a lawyer now. And even look at Billy Eppler. This past year, he was in an agency having to do with baseball, so he wasn't even in a front office technically. He was in the Yankees front office as an assistant to Brian Cashman, but what did that do for him with the Angels? Nothing. He still wasn't successful. And it just really boggles my mind because year after year, when you looked at the Los Angeles Angels, you said, okay, what does this team need? Pitching, starting pitching. Maybe the Angels are going to finally get some starting pitching. And they never did it. They tried all this patchwork, the Jose Quintanas of the world, and these other starting pitchers that they would bring in, and they weren't very good. And the other thing I don't like about Billy Eppler is look at some of the free agents he signed. Some people want to give him credit for Justin Upton. Are you kidding me? Justin Upton was good in his first year with the Angels, but ever since then has been on a steady decline. Not a good player anymore, and the Angels are still paying him. Justin Upton has never made an all-star team as an Angel. Something analytics people don't like. Who could even have a good first half of a season, even get a flawed all-star appearance? Andrelton Simmons, oh, that was another big one. He's not even with the Angels anymore. So far, Anthony Rendon contract, we don't know yet. He was hurt this year, so you don't want to evaluate the Rendon contract quite yet. People are like, oh my gosh, he extended Mike Trout. Wow, I mean, what a brilliant idea. If you have the best player in baseball, keeping him, I mean, so out of the box, just so much smarter than everybody else. Oh my gosh, make him my general manager because he had the brain to extend the best player in the league. Who would have thought of it? And he also got Shohei Ohtani. Oh my gosh, you got the next Babe Ruth. Who would have thought? What is this telling Billy Eppler? He's a good negotiator. He could bamboozle you. He could tell Mike Trout, oh, we're going to build you a great team. We're going to get you into the playoffs. We're going to surround you with really good talent. Doesn't get the job done. Same thing with Ohtani. Oh, look at the future you're going to have. Oh, you're going to be this great player. I mean, the Angels are most likely going to have two separate MVPs on the same team, yet can't make the playoffs. So how do I know that Billy Eppler isn't just a really good sweet talker and maybe has bamboozled Sandy Alderson? He bamboozled Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. How do I know that Sandy Alderson and Steve Cohen didn't fall for the same thing? Maybe he's just a really good talker and somebody that interviews really well. It's like, oh my gosh, he talks good. Let's give him the general manager role. I'm just very frustrated. Just looking at the guys the Mets missed out on. Matt Arnold was someone I liked a lot. Josh Burns, they never really pursued him that heavily, even though he's someone that I and all the other Mets Weekly members really liked. And obviously, it's too early to bash him. You are willing to give him a chance. After you get a general manager, like, okay, now we need a manager for the team. And the guy's name that I keep seeing is Brad Ausmus, another guy who was fired by the Angels because he wasn't any good. So why is it that we were bringing in people from the Los Angeles Angels who got fired because they weren't doing a good job? And it's like, oh, now they'll do a good job with our team. I didn't watch the Angels very much, but the times that I did watch them, I was mind-boggled by some of the decisions that Brad Ausmus would make. I'm like, what is this guy doing? He definitely is not a good manager. And in the National League, I mean, hopefully there's a DH, because if he has to do double switches and things like that he's never done because he's only been an American League manager, first with Detroit, then Los Angeles, this is going to be a brand new experience for Brad Ausmus managing in the National League. There are other candidates out there that I like better. Even if you're going to go for a Joe Espada route or even a Mike Schilt, Miguel Cairo, someone I like a lot. I think has a much better background than Brad Ausmus. I feel like he could translate into a good manager. Now, the one other good thing that Billy Eppler does have going for him that you're seeing reported on Twitter is that he is good friends with David Stearns, which we know is the New York Mets' #1 option. Now, I really hope that this is not the main factor in why the New York Mets are getting Billy Eppler, because I talked about it on Thursday. I just don't like this idea of being so sold on one guy, putting all of your eggs in one basket. If David Stearns sees the Mets not do a good job because Billy Eppler and Brad Ausmus are no good, why would David Stearns want to come here? Why would he want to leave one of those premier organizations like I talked about in the beginning of the video in the Milwaukee Brewers, where he's had some success building that team and being competitive every single year? I just don't think that David Stearns is a guarantee, so that is why I don't want to just be like, oh, let me get his friend, because that will increase my chances. I mean, at this point, all you could do is hope that Billy Eppler is going to be a good general manager, because Sandy Alderson, I imagine, is not going to be here much longer. He really could just retire and live his life, not have to deal with the stress of the Mets and the New York media anymore. Obviously, Brodie Van Wagenen didn't work out for the Mets. It's just been very frustrating with them not being able to find any stability in the organization, whether that's in the front office or at the manager position, because it just seems like we're constantly getting new managers, new managers, new managers. If they do get Brad Ausmus, I don't think Brad Ausmus is going to be the Mets manager for 10 years, 15 years. He'll probably be here like 2 years, and then they fire him because he's no good. You may call it negative, but I'm just being frank about it. I'm being real about it. I'm looking at what have you done. What has Billy Eppler and Brad Ausmus shown me that I could be so excited about? Everything is rainbows and butterflies. Oh, the Mets are going to be great. They're going to be in the playoffs every year. I haven't seen that. I'll believe it when I see it. Now, I did see another report that if Billy Eppler were to join the New York Mets organization, some other guys would leave the organization to pursue other roles. And it's like, what are we doing here? Because the New York Mets front office is pretty short-staffed. When Steve Cohen first took over, he fired everybody. He fired Brodie, Omar Minaya, Allard Bear, Gutrich, and a few other guys in the front office. So the Mets were pretty short-staffed. Yes, you brought in Sandy Alderson's son. Yes, the Mets have a couple of good scouts. But if you have some guys leave your organization and you bring in Billy Eppler, you're still short-handed. The Mets have made a lot of improvements to their analytical staff, but what has that done for them? They were a massive disappointment this year, even with all those brilliant analytics guys they added. So I hope this is a video that I could look back on and laugh. Ah ha ha, oh Frank, he's so dumb. Billy Eppler has won the Mets so many World Series, and Brad Ausmus is the best manager in the league. Oh, they made Frank look like a dummy. I would be thrilled to look like a dummy if it means the Mets actually get some sustainable winning, because I'm sick and tired of every single year they miss the playoffs, they're a complete disappointment, and it's like, oh, well, we need new people to hire and we need new players because what we have is never good enough. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Again, let me know what you think about Billy Eppler, Brad Ausmus, David Stearns, and anything else Mets related or sports related. And until the next one, be safe, be smart, be healthy, and let's go Mets. Hopefully Billy Eppler doesn't suck.